So today I want to talk about something that most people are completely missing about this war. Everyone is talking about missiles and ceasefire deals. Everyone is talking about whether Israel will strike Iran again. Everyone is talking about what America will do next and whether Washington can still control this situation. But almost nobody is asking the question that actually matters most to ordinary people. And that question is this: while America was hesitating, while Washington was holding meetings and issuing statements, who was actually moving? Who was quietly locking in relationships, trade deals, and influence that will shape your energy bill, your savings, your job, and your future for the next 20 years? The answer, when you look at it carefully, is that America just handed China the most valuable gift in modern geopolitical history. And it did not happen on a battlefield. It happened in the space between what America promised and what America actually did, depending on where you live and how your economy is connected to the Middle East. This moment will affect your energy costs, your food prices, your savings, and your future in ways that have not even started to arrive yet. So today I want to walk you through exactly what happened, who won, who lost, and what comes next. Actor by actor, step by step, with clear and honest analysis. So let us begin. Everything I'm about to tell you rests on one single idea. In geopolitics, the moment a powerful nation hesitates is the moment every other nation recalculates. I said this would happen. I said it clearly. I said that the moment America showed reluctance to act decisively in the Middle East, Iran would test that reluctance, and Iran just did exactly that. Not recklessly, not blindly, precisely and deliberately, because Iran has spent 40 years studying American hesitation and learning exactly where the lines are. The question is no longer whether America is the dominant power in the Middle East. The question is whether America's partners in the region still believe that dominance means anything when the moment of truth arrives. And here is the framework you need to understand everything that follows. Every nation in this story is making the same calculation. How reliable is America's commitment? And what does that answer mean for our own survival strategy? The more uncertain the answer, the more every nation begins building alternatives. The more alternatives they build, the less leverage America has. And the less leverage America has, the more China's quiet. Consistent presence looks like the smarter bet. That is the chain reaction this moment started. Let me walk you through every major actor with exactly that framework in mind. On the surface, Iran looks like a nation under enormous pressure. Its economy has been crushed by decades of American sanctions. Its currency has lost more than 90% of its value against the dollar in the past 15 years. Its young population is increasingly restless and frustrated. Its military, despite being large, is technologically outmatched by Israel and would be completely outmatched by any direct American engagement. But underneath that surface, Iran just demonstrated something that every nation on earth was watching very carefully. Iran demonstrated that America's red lines are not actually red lines, they are orange lines, maybe yellow. And the color changes depending on domestic politics and election cycles, and how much the White House thinks the American public wants another war in the Middle East. Here is the specific number that matters. Iran launched more than 300 drones and missiles at Israel in a single coordinated strike, the largest direct missile attack in Iranian history. And what happened? America helped Israel intercept most of them. America issued stern statements, and then America told Israel, quietly and publicly, do not escalate further. Think about what that chain reaction looks like to every other nation watching. If Iran launches 300 missiles, and the response is a strongly worded statement and a request to de-escalate, then the cost of testing American red lines is lower than anyone thought. If the cost is lower than expected, other nations will test those same lines. And if they test them and find the same result, America's ability to use the threat of force as a deterrent collapses. For ordinary Iranian families, this moment means something very specific. The regime just showed its own population that it can directly strike a nuclear-armed ally of the world's most powerful nation and survive. That is a message aimed as much at domestic audiences as it is at international ones. Now let us look at how America responded to all of this, because that response tells you everything. On the surface, America still looks like the dominant power in this situation. Its military is the most powerful in the world by every objective measure. Its navy controls the most critical shipping lanes, and its intelligence services tracked Iran's missile launches in real time. Its technology helped intercept the attack with remarkable precision. On the surface, America performed exactly as advertised. But underneath that performance is a reality that every foreign ministry on the planet noticed immediately. America's first instinct was not to escalate, it was to contain. And containment, in this context, means something very specific. America is more afraid of a wider war than it is committed to punishing the nation that so started one. Here is the number that defines America's current position: $36 trillion in national debt. That is not an abstract figure. That is the anchor that sits around every American foreign policy decision. Every military commitment comes with a price tag. And Washington is increasingly aware that it cannot afford unlimited open-ended commitments in every corner of the world simultaneously. So here is the consequence chain. America's debt constrains its willingness to escalate. Its unwillingness to escalate signals hesitation. That hesitation gets read as weakness, or at least as predictable caution. Predictable caution can be exploited. And once it is exploited, once successfully, every other actor in the region begins asking the same question: what can we get away with? For ordinary American families, this moment means something very direct. Every time America hesitates in the Middle East, oil price volatility increases. And oil price volatility affects energy bills, food, transportation costs, and savings tied to energy markets. This is not an abstract foreign policy problem. This is a kitchen table problem. Now let us talk about the actor who did not hesitate at all and did not even need to. On the surface, China appears to have nothing to do with an Iran-Israel conflict. It did not fire any missiles. It did not deploy any forces. It issued careful diplomatic statements calling for restraint and dialogue. If you read only the headlines, China looks like a passive bystander in this story. But that is exactly the wrong way to read what China is doing. China has been playing the longest game in this region for the past decade. It brokered the normalization agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran in March 2023. The single most significant diplomatic achievement in the Middle East in 30 years. America had spent 20 years trying to prevent that relationship from forming. China helped build it in one meeting. Here is the specific number. China now imports approximately 50% of its oil from the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the UAE as its three largest suppliers. China has a direct, concrete, existential interest in Middle Eastern stability. And it has been building the relationships to protect that interest quietly, consistently, and without the domestic political complications that shape American policy. So here is what China is doing while America is debating. Every time America hesitates, China offers itself as the reliable alternative. Every leader in the Gulf who watches America tell Israel to de-escalate, instead of holding Iran accountable, makes the same internal calculation: we need a relationship with China as a hedge against American unreliability. If those hedges become primary relationships, American influence in the Gulf collapses. If American influence in the Gulf collapses, the petrodollar system that has underpinned global financial markets for 50 years comes under serious pressure. And if that system comes under pressure, the entire global financial architecture that America built after 1945 begins to shift. For ordinary Chinese families, this moment confirms exactly what their government has been telling them for years. Patience and consistency beat confrontation and unpredictability. Now let us look at the player sitting in the middle of all this, trying desperately to calculate which way to lean. On the surface, Saudi Arabia looks like a stable American ally that has nothing to worry about. It has enormous oil wealth, modern military equipment purchased from the United States, and a formal security relationship with Washington that goes back to the 1940s. On paper, Saudi Arabia is firmly in the American camp, but underneath that surface, Saudi Arabia is watching this situation with a level of anxiety that its public statements completely conceal. Here is a calculation every Saudi decision maker is making right now. Iran just attacked Israel directly. Israel is a nation with nuclear weapons and an explicit American security guarantee. America's response was to intercept the missiles and ask for de-escalation. Saudi Arabia does not have nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia's American security guarantee, when it has been tested in the past, has produced similar results. In 2019, Iran-backed groups attacked Saudi oil infrastructure directly, striking approximately 5% of global oil supply in a single day. America issued statements and did not respond militarily. That number, 5% of global oil supply disrupted without military consequences for the attacker, is burned into the memory of every Saudi security official. If America will not respond when its closest Gulf partner is struck, what exactly is the American security guarantee worth? And if the answer is uncertain, then the relationship with China, which helped broker a normalization with Iran, suddenly looks like it offers something America cannot. A pathway to manage coexistence rather than a promise of military protection that might not materialize. For ordinary Saudi families, this moment means energy revenues that fund their healthcare, education, and subsidies are increasingly tied to geopolitical calculations that are becoming impossible to predict. Now let us look at Israel, because its situation is the most complicated of all. On the surface, Israel looks like the nation that just absorbed the largest direct missile attack in its history and survived almost entirely intact. Its Iron Dome and allied interception systems performed extraordinarily well. Its military remains the most capable in the region. Its intelligence services had advance warning of the attack. Its relationship with America, while complicated, remains the most important strategic partnership it has. But underneath that performance is a strategic reality that Israeli planners are being forced to confront. America's message to Israel after the Iranian attack was essentially this: you won this round, now do not do anything that gives us a political problem. And that message, delivered by Israel's most important ally, at its moment of greatest vulnerability, tells Israel something fundamental about the future. Israel's defense budget is approximately $24 billion per year, a significant figure for a nation of 9 million people. But the deeper investment Israel has been making for years is in self-sufficiency, in domestic missile defense, in its own intelligence capabilities, in its own military technology, precisely because it understands that American support comes with conditions. Here's the consequence chain. If Israel cannot rely on unconditional American support, it will build the capability to act alone. If it builds the capability to act alone, it will use that capability when it judges it necessary, regardless of American preferences. If it acts alone, it creates the escalation cycles that America was trying to prevent. The attempt to restrain Israel produces exactly the unpredictability it was trying to avoid. For ordinary Israeli families, this moment means that the sense of American reliability that their parents and grandparents could take for granted is no longer something they can assume. That is a profound shift in how a nation thinks about its own future. So now let us zoom out and look at the biggest picture of all. What each of these individual stories has in common is not missiles or oil or military alliances. What they have in common is a single question that every nation in the story is answering in real time. Who is the reliable power going forward? Iran answered that question by testing American resolve and finding it flexible. China answered it by building relationships quietly while America was consumed by its own domestic political debates. Saudi Arabia is answering it by hedging toward China while publicly maintaining American alliance commitments. Israel is answering it by accelerating its military self-sufficiency. America answered it whether it intended to or not. by prioritizing de-escalation over accountability. And here's the crucial insight that most people are completely missing. This is not a story about a single military confrontation between Iran and Israel. This is a story about the moment when the credibility architecture that America built over 70 years began showing its most serious fractures. Credibility in geopolitics works like credit in finance. It takes decades to build and can collapse very quickly once the questions start. America's credibility in the Middle East is not gone, but it is being questioned by actors who were not questioning it a decade ago, and once those questions become habit, the architecture changes in ways that are very difficult to reverse. China did not need to fire a single missile. It did not need to threaten anyone. It simply needed to be present, consistent, and patient while America reminded the world of its limitations. That is a masterclass in long-game geopolitics, and it is happening right now in real time. I want to end with the most surprising conclusion of this entire analysis. You might expect me to say that China is the clear winner of this moment. China brokered Saudi-Iran normalization. China is expanding its Middle East relationships. China is the patient, consistent alternative to America's unpredictable commitments. But actually, no. The biggest winner of this moment is not China. It is every small nation that has been quietly watching and learning. Nations like the UAE, Qatar, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Nations that have spent decades perfecting the art of maintaining relationships with multiple great powers simultaneously without fully committing to any of them. Think about it like this. For the past 70 years, geopolitics worked like a solar system with one sun. America was the center of gravity and every other nation orbited around it. And some orbited closely and some orbited at a distance, but the gravitational pull is always there. What is happening right now is that the solar system is slowly becoming a binary star system with both America and China exerting gravitational pull. And in a binary star system, the objects that survive best are not the ones locked into the orbit of one star. They are the ones that have learned to move between two gravitational fields without being consumed by either. The nations that have built that skill, the ones that can trade with China, maintain security relationships with America, negotiate with Iran, and sell oil to everyone simultaneously. Those are the nations that will emerge strongest from the reorganization that this moment is accelerating. That is not weakness. That is the highest form of geopolitical wisdom available in a world where the old rules are being rewritten. So let us just recap what we covered today. Iran launched the largest direct missile attack in its history at Israel and demonstrated that testing American red lines carries a lower cost than anyone expected. America, carrying $36 trillion in debt and deeply cautious about open-ended military commitments, prioritized de-escalation over accountability, and every nation on earth noticed. China moved without moving, building relationships, expanding influence, and positioning itself as the reliable alternative precisely by doing nothing dramatic, while America's hesitation did the work for it. Saudi Arabia is quietly hedging, calculating that the Chinese relationship that helped normalize ties with Iran may offer something that the American security guarantee has failed to provide twice in 6 years. Israel, absorbing the reality that American support comes with conditions, is accelerating its own military self-sufficiency and may become more unpredictable as a result. And the real winners of this entire moment are the small, agile nations that have mastered the art of moving between two great powers in a binary star geopolitical world. This war is not just a military conflict between Israel and Iran. It is the moment when the unipolar world order that shaped your savings, your energy bill, your job, and your future for 70 years began its most visible transition to something new. The question is not whether that transition is coming. It is already here. The question is whether you are watching it clearly